Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Write Better Together with Peggy and Kennedy and my temporary co host, Kimberly Drymon.
Hi.
And also, welcome to Mechanics Monday, our second Mechanics Monday of the year. And today we're going to talk a little more about planning or plotting, specifically brainstorming. And one of the things I believe we talked about last week, Kimberly Drummond, was listing. When you're stuck on writing or you have writer's block, you can list as many topics or subjects or anything that you can think of, and that might possibly get you back on track. And you can do that as well for brainstorming if you have an idea of something to write and you can just write anything that you can think of, any particular topic. Like, say you want to write about Japan, you can list topics like bullet train, steam buns, Mount Fuji, that sort of thing, and just keep doing that until you get completely sick and tired of it, and then you can move on to either more planning or outlining for your story. And another way to kind of brainstorm and plan your story is a bubble map, which my lovely co-host will show us. And your main idea can be here. I feel like you could actually use one of these for each of your characters or for your setting or whatever you want. So, say for example, your main idea, your maybe one of your characters is this guy John Doe. Maybe his sickness, maybe he's sick here, or you could talk about his sickness and doctor's visits, etc. And maybe his wife and family here and how they're taking care of him. And I can't think of anything else, but you get the idea.
And Peggyann Kennedy, these can be as long and as big as you need them to be. You
Yeah,
might even fill up a wall with one if you want to. It's okay.
exactly. I think I used those for like grade school papers. I think you taught them to me.
I homeschooled her.
She did. She did good. But yeah, so then on to outlining. You can use any method of outlining that works best for you, just like the brainstorming methods. So for outlining, you can do the standard Roman numerals, or you can use like your journal or Word to just write down what happens when. Or I've actually seen some that look a little complicated, like Excel spreadsheets. That was actually something John Myers did. I didn't fully understand it, but it looks really cool and it is very organized.
That's more for the scientific minded of you.
Exactly. So if you have a mind for that, that is really awesome. So
Well, Peggyann Kennedy, doesn't that bring in plotter versus pantser a little bit there?
it really
If you're a
does.
pantser and you fly by your pants, you're not going to want to stick to a stricter planning stage.
And if you're a plantster like me, kind of a little bit of both, you might use elements of both and kind of combine them in a way that works for you. Honestly, it just kind of depends on what works best for you. And a lot of it is experimentation and just figuring out what does work for you and what doesn't.
What is your favorite way? Could you give us an example?
Oof. I have so many different places in my phone, like on my Pages app or my Word app, where I literally just write down different ideas. I don't really have an actual Roman numeral outline or anything fancy like John Byers used to do, but I I just write down like, hey, maybe this character could do so and so, or maybe maybe these two characters actually know each other. Maybe they're going to run into each other eventually, that kind of thing. I don't really have anything very organized, but yeah.
When I write, I would very much prefer this method because I can see everything at once, especially if you have them all on a board, a bulletin board where you can look at it as you're writing. You can see everything, keep up with it, make sure you don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. That would be you. And
What would be some examples of mistakes we could make if we're planning?
ooh, so like if you say in one part of the chapter that your character has blue eyes, and then in another chapter later on down the road, your character has brown eyes, that would be something to watch out for. Or like family situations where your character might be, say, an only child, but then later on down the line you mentioned that he or she has a sister. So you want to be really careful and make sure you know your character pretty well before you start doing all of that. I would recommend having a little list of things about your character like that, just kind of on the side for you to reference while you're writing, like only child, blue eyes, and a little physical description, and a little bit, just enough to help you go on by.
When you're brainstorming, do you get to the point where you're concerned with your future conflicts and those sorts of things of the story, or you're just brainstorming characters and setting and that sort of thing at this point?
Mm, Honestly, you can certainly do either or, but I think that doing conflict would be a really good thing to do at this stage because you want to know your characters and you want to know what they want. But in order to do that, you also have to know kind of what in the story is going to happen to keep them from getting what they want, which is what conflict is. So,
So with brainstorming, you can do as little or as much as you want at the beginning.
exactly. You can plot the entire story out and you can know everything that happens and like every word you're going to write from beginning to end, or you can just do as much as you need for like the next few chapters or something like that, or just enough to help you go on by for the next little bit. But yeah, and I recommend also doing the main plot and the subplots. So the main plot is basically just what happens throughout your story, like that whole thing about the conflict and like what your character wants and how he or she goes about trying to get it. And your That's the main thing, but then your subplots are the things that kind of happen in the background. I like to think of them as like the things that are kind of happening alongside the plot. Like, say your character is a treasure hunter. He's trying to find treasure to settle some debts or something. And maybe along the side, like as a subplot, he's trying to get back with his ex, or maybe trying to restore friendship with an old friend. So those would be considered subplots. And you really want to avoid adding too many because I've seen that in some books and it can get a little chaotic if you have too many. So you want a good little balance, but it does really help make the characters and the whole story just feel realistic and balanced, I guess. Well defined.
Yes, and with too much, it gets so messy that you can't keep up with it and the reader loses interest.
Exactly. It does provide a lot of depth, but you don't want to add too much. A perfect
Mm,
balance is needed.
makes sense.
Yeah. So, as we mentioned about conflicts, I think you really want them to be relatable. I did want to mention that you want it to be something that the reader can understand. Like I like reading a lot of fantasy books, and one thing that attracts me to them, even though the characters are all like elves or fae or something like that, they still feel human because they have those conflicts. Like they're missing somebody who lives way far away, or they're I don't know that they're struggling over trauma, something that happened that they're trying to get over, and things like that. They have struggles that I've faced, and that is something you want to think about for your reader. You want the reader to understand and to, you know, feel kind of have some resonance, I guess, with what's going on with the characters. And yeah,
And of course, we are talking about brainstorming. So, brainstorming means you list all the ideas you can think of, and you can do it with conflicts as well.
yeah,
And then you can weed out those that don't make sense or you don't like.
exactly. That's a really good idea.
That's what brainstorming is.
Yeah, and another thing you really I might mention this in a later episode and later Mechanics Monday, but you really want your characters to have a little flaw, but that just makes them a little more human. And some, like I mentioned with the conflicts, it makes them a little more relatable. But we'll talk about that in a future episode. And another thing we'll talk about in a future episode, I could write them a whole entire episodes based off of working titles or just titles in general. So, a working title is one that you temporarily assign to your book or your story as you're writing it, just so that you have a name tacked onto it so that you can refer back to it, or especially if you're talking to a publisher or a literary agent trying to get your book published, you can really they will expect a working title. They'll ask you what it is.
You'll often bump into one, especially if you go to WriterCon, and they'll ask.
Yes, definitely. If you ever do a pitch to an agent about your story, then or your book, then they'll ask you what your working title is. So, highly recommend having one of those. You don't have to worry about it too much right now in the brainstorming section, but I would recommend just kinda having that thought in your mind for sure.
And that's working title is also something that gives you some ownership to
Yeah.
your baby. Your story's your baby. Much like if you bring home a stray dog, someone will say, "Oh, don't name it, then it becomes ours." So once you name it, it's more your story.
Exactly. It's a part of you, and you're a part of it.
Exactly.
Um, so, Kimberly Drummond, now I believe it's time for our viewer response.
So, from the last Mechanics Monday episode, which was about plotting, we had at Laurie M. McDuffie, no, excuse me, at Laurie McDuffie 9221. She said, I learned so much from your podcast. You gave me some really great ideas and you introduced some terminology and techniques that I had never heard of before. Would love to be one author and I will definitely be taking notes on the information you discussed during this podcast. Well done. We happen to know Laurie and think a lot of her. She's a dear friend. Thank you for following Laurie, and your support means a great deal.
Yes, thank you very much, Laurie, and I'm glad that I'm able to teach something and be of some help to somebody. So thank you very much for those encouraging words.
And we also had at Beverly Drymon 7587. Beverly said, very well done. I'm not a writer, but could follow everything about it. Please continue as you've planned. I don't want to miss any of them. Beverly Drymon. We also know her very well and love her and thank you, Beverly, for your support.
Yes, thank you very much, Beverly Drymon and Laurie McDuffie.
We do love comments and we hope that you'll comment often and we'll feature them on future podcasts if at all
Yes,
possible.
please do, and please like and subscribe if you haven't already.
Yes. So, on Write Better Together's YouTube channel, there's definitely a button for subscribe. I don't know about the other social medias. I'm old and out of it, but please, if you're watching on YouTube, do like it and subscribe and share with people that might be interested. This podcast is geared for anyone, whether you're experienced or just beginning or just interested in writing.
Exactly. Thank you all very much. And I look forward to Wednesday, in which we interview a very special guest, Professor Karaya Ali Lansana. And we'll be talking a lot with him about his poetry and journalism. So please tune in. And
He's won a lot of awards.
yes, it was an honor to talk with him and to be one of his mentees at one point. So I really look forward to that. And I hope you do too. So thank you all very much. And
And come back for the next Mechanics Monday where we might talk about
character development.
character development. Yes, it'll be interesting.
Yes. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.